Welcome to the September the 19th, 1995 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you the history of our city, some of the people that have had a part in the happening of that history. Today we're doing history tape number 258, and we're very excited today. We have a special group that are having a celebration. And you know, those of us in Grand Prairie that are into celebration like the historic ones, and this one is second to none. We have the 125th anniversary of the West Fork Presbyterian Church. Really, the oldest church in the geographic boundaries of our city of Grand Prairie, Texas. And we're very excited today. We have the Reverend Neil, first of all.
Thank you, Ruth.
We are so glad to have you with us today. You bet. Warren, you're a young man.
Oh, yes.
And yet you have a historic church. Isn't that great?
Well, that's one of the joys of life. And I've known the church since 1961.
Oh, that is wonderful.
And moderated the session out there on many different occasions.
Yes.
When they were without pastors. And then just out of the blue one day,
yes,
Lucille Patterson called and said, Warren, could you supply the pulpit while our pastor is on vacation? He and his wife were going to Europe. And I said, well, I'll be happy to. And I started the 18th of June of 1987. And the pastor came back from vacation and said he didn't want to come back. And so Lucille said, Warren, would you help us till we find someone?
Yes, I see.
They're still looking.
They're still looking, and you are just perfect. We're just so glad to have you on the set today.
Oh, thank you, hon. It's good to be here, too.
Wonderful. And Jan Barrett, longtime worker in Grand Prairie historical circles, been the president of every historical group that we've had, and also been on the commission, and now you've been reappointed back to the Historical Commission, I understand, Jan Barrett. We want to welcome you back to the set, my dear.
Thank
and
you.
especially,
nice to be here.
Especially with your role in the celebration. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
You bet. Wonderful. And now, a brand new man to the set that we've not had on the set before, Mr. Lloyd Strange. Mr. Luther Strange, glad to have you with us, young man. We want to welcome you formally.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes, all right. And Luther, how long have you been associated with this wonderful West Fork Presbyterian?
Since first about 1930, I guess.
Around 1930.
And then in 35, for all intents and purposes, I left this area and then came back, and then about the time that Warren came into the church, very shortly thereafter, I came back out there and rejoined the church.
And y'all make a real good team, don't you?
Oh, listen.
Well, I tell you what, you have all these young people out there like us. Well, we're not as young as we used to be, but
Yes.
Warren is the real spirit of the church.
Yes.
And that's what brings us and other people together out there.
That's wonderful. All right, Jan, we're celebrating something. You going to tell us what we're celebrating?
We're celebrating the 125th birthday of the church.
When are we doing all this?
We're doing it October 8th. There will be a reception from 2 until 4 o'clock. There will be a special program beginning at 3 o'clock. And we invite anyone who would like to join us earlier that morning for worship service to please come. The doors are always open.
Are we having food or?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes, we're having refreshments. We certainly are.
Finger foods.
Finger
The
foods.
preacher always thinks about a fried chicken. This is finger foods.
Do you think that's going to be adequate for preachers that really do like fried chicken, Reverend Neil?
We'll make out.
You're going to make that. Oh, that is great. All right, Marguerite Patton, illustrious lady that has been so important to Grand Prairie, Texas for these many years in PTA circles, Parks Board, Commission on Aging. You could just name almost everything that you've had an important role in, and especially the completion of the Lennox. I know that you're crossing your fingers that everything will go well on that, but Marguerite, why did you choose the West Fork Presbyterian Church as your place of worship?
Well, 37 years ago, we moved into our home on Ingleside Drive in Wildwood Oaks, and the then preacher came to our house and invited us. And since we were Presbyterian, had been married at the First Presbyterian Church in Grand Prairie in '54, as soon as my children were where I thought I could handle them in church, we started going, and I've been going for 35 years.
35 years at the West Fork Presbyterian.
That's good.
All right. Now, who's going to talk to me about the significant landmark that you have there and the fact that you have a state marker? Jan, I think you helped work on that, didn't you?
Yes.
I know Marguerite did. And
Marguerite, I think
You
she
think Marguerite knows a little
yes.
bit more about that?
I think this was done before I started going to the
before you
church.
found out you were kin to all the
Yes.
in
When I found out,
Prairie, Texas.
I ran out there and knocked on the doors.
And then you became a convert, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Marguerite, tell us about your...
Well, we thought about trying to get the historical marker for our centennial celebration.
Yes.
And we just couldn't get it pulled together at that time because they said it was not the original building, while it is partly the original building, but it had been moved. And they either changed their rules a little bit or something, and it was a Nell Kilo from Arlington that was an old-time family member of West Fork that really put up the money and did the groundwork for the state historical marker. And then even better than that, our own city of Grand Prairie recognized us and had a nice dedication with a historical marker from the city as well prior to the state historical markers.
That really set the stage when you got the Grand Prairie Significant Landmark. That made you authentic, and the state couldn't turn you down, could
That's
it?
probably true. Probably true.
Yes.
And we're very proud, and it does bring people our way, and we're happy to open the doors anytime anybody would like to come and look around.
Now, what makes West Fork an unusual church? It's one of the few churches in Grand Prairie, Texas that are in Tarrant County. Is that not true?
That's true.
That is true. So you all are located in Tarrant County, but now who knows about the history of it when the former church building was located right in the middle of what is now I-30 and 360. Does anybody know about that?
That was where it was located when I started going there.
All right, now tell us about that, will you, Luther, because we've not had anybody that really was into that really saw it at that time. Look out into your camera, and you're establishing some wonderful history for us here today.
Well, the building is, the main church building that we now have is the same building that was in the old location.
All right.
The annex was put on later on.
Yes.
But when they started to build the turnpike, as I understand it, well, they had to take the church property, and
Yes.
and then the building itself was bought, as I understand it, by the Turnpike Authority, and then turned over to the church, I suppose, to dispose of, and it was moved to its present location on some property that Johnny Santerre had at that time.
109th and Santerre, right in the middle of the great Southwest Industrial District.
That's
I think
right.
that is so magnificent.
And if anybody really wants the history of it, they can go to the Watson Cemetery, which is right there off of the main North 30 and the Watson Road North. And there's all the names of those people there that started this and their families that went there and built that church and nursed it all its way up until it come along. And actually it was, as I understand, was pretty much going downhill until Warren came in and brought his spirit in there. And,
That's right.
And he has really made it grow.
That is wonderful. All right, Warren, he's given you a testimonial, so you're going to have to talk a little bit about
Ruth,
where were you before you came to West Fork when
Well-
they asked you to come in as an interim person that has lasted since 1987?
I was retired.
I see.
I retired from the Trinity Presbyterian in Mansfield, where
I
I
see.
went down after I retired from First Church. I was there
In
for
Arlington.
over 17 years, First Church Arlington. Went to Mansfield and organized a new church.
Okay.
Built the building, had it paid for, and I retired again. And then West Fork got after me.
Yes.
May we try to tell the people where the church really is located?
Would you
Because
do that?
I have so many people that say, we went out trying to find it, and we ended up way over on Egyptian Drive, and we never did see it.
All right, let's talk about it.
I think the best way, at least for me, is to go up 360 to, it's Brown Street the other way, Avenue K if you turn right.
It's Avenue K.
Avenue K.
If you turn east.
Uh-huh. Follow Avenue K until you cross over the railroad track, and almost immediately is a left turn. You can't turn right or you'll be on Great Southwest Golf Course.
Yes.
So you turn left. That's 109th Street. Go down a long block, and there on your right is Santerre Drive. It's the first street you can
Yes.
turn on. You turn on Santerre Drive, and immediately there is West Fork Presbyterian Church.
Oh, it is just...
And it's, to me, it's a little oasis in
Yes.
that industrial area out there with the factories, the warehouses, storage, and here's the little church with its beautiful trees and lawn and the old building itself.
How many members do you have?
We have 44 members now.
Oh, that's great. That's
We have
great.
more than that in church every Sunday.
Yes. Oh, that's great.
So we're happy about that, Ruth. I don't listen to what Luther has to say here about me, but the church has grown and the attendance is wonderful. And if you'd hear that group of people sing
Yes.
on Sunday morning, the old hymns, it just stirs your heart and your spine tingles.
Yes. And speaking of singing, you know that one of the people here on the dais today has a magnificent voice, and I heard her sing yesterday at Iola Reed Smith's funeral in Old Dalworth. That was magnificent. And Marguerite Patton, thank you for doing so many good things for history. And now here you are.
She's my choir director.
She is the choir director. Oh, that is wonderful. Marguerite, would you name drop some of the people that have been important to that you can bring to bear for us?
Well, I believe when Luther was talking about them moving the church to where it is now, I think that was 1956. And Annie Mae Wheeler's husband, Olin Wheeler, designed the steeple.
Oh,
That's they're part of the church. That was added, as well as the choir loft and the side room. Annie Mae is, I believe, 84 or 85 now. She has never
85.
attended any other church her entire life. Her family lived on property adjacent to where the church is now.
Is she has the longest tenure of any member continuous, as far as you know?
I would say living. I'm not sure. Laureen Wycliffe also is close to that age and has attended that church and lived in that area her entire life.
Her entire life.
I think Annie Mae has a few years on her.
Okay. Nella Beth Santerre is 2 weeks older than Annie Mae, and she is still living. She's living in a retirement center in Arlington now.
Yes.
But Nella Beth Santerre and her husband John have lived in that area since the 30s, and she donated the piano and the organ to our church and is still our
She's our official organist.
Oh, how
And
wonderful.
so I think that we certainly want to remember them. Lucille Preston, whom he mentioned earlier, and her family, the Rorixes, are old-time people, and they're gone from us now. But she just passed away this past year. And those are some of the main ones. I know I've overlooked some, but that used to, when I first started that church, I would see someone I thought was new, and I would rush up and say, "Welcome to West Fork," and they'd say, "I've been coming here since I was a little kid," you know. So I got very reluctant about who I welcomed to church for a while. But I've been going there about 35 years now, and I'm still considered a newcomer, I think.
Even though you direct the choir, tell us about your choir. I think that's wonderful because I heard them sing last year.
Well, I think they're quite phenomenal because we number anywhere from 5 to 10 in the choir, and we can make a lot of noise.
Good
And the congregation is very kind. They like the old hymns primarily, and we say that that's what we're going to do. And so we try to stick with mostly the older hymns, and the choir does something bold every once in a while on their own. But I think we have just a marvelous group, and Reverend Neil's got one of the most beautiful voices you've ever heard himself. And one of the bonuses when he came to West Fork was that he and his wife Gwen both sing in the choir. And when they go on vacation, we not only miss having our minister, but the choir sorely misses them too.
That is wonderful. All right, Luther, is there anything else that we've left out on this that you think ought to be in this documentary?
Well, I would just mention that Johnny Sonter not only was a power in the church and helped keep it going for years, but he was also very active in Grand Prairie activities.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Is there anything else that you need to have on this tape that we're doing? Because this is our historic record of the setting the stage for this 125th.
Did some of your relatives used to go there?
Jan has some history here of the church. Would you like to hear that?
Yeah, let's have some history from Jan. Come on, Jan.
Well, you kind of pinpointed me here. I think I'd probably just have to tell in my own words. I do have a book in front of me, but I think what really made me interested in the church was the fact that my great-great-great-grandfather, Micajah Goodwin, came to the area in 1846. And his daughter is mentioned in this history book as being a female in the classroom, and also that he's mentioned in contributing to the library in 1857. So I wasn't aware when I started working on the history that he was probably involved in the church until I read this, and I became, more interested in it. The names, when I've done research, the Lassiters, the Fords, the Fingers, the Trailers, they're all Copelands, they're all old families. Luther mentioned that many of them are buried at the Watson Cemetery. There are a lot of them buried just right down the street in the old Ford Cemetery also. So,
Near the ARA plant?
Yes, they are. So the church began, I believe in 1857 as
They talked of organizing it then, but we were on the verge of the Civil War, and so they held up until after the war was over, and Presbytery came in and organized them as a church.
It was called the Cumberland.
It was a Cumberland Presbyterian church, and they were...
And school?
And school. Probably one of the first public schools in Arlington, and maybe even in the larger Metroplex area, was run and supported by the West Fork Presbyterian Church. So it's had its influence on the community for many years, reaching out in many, many different ways.
And even though there is no longer a school there, the influence of that has gone out into the area, into Arlington and Grand Prairie, and even Irving and Sowers and all of the surrounding community. But I wanted to ask Jan, she mentioned Micajah Goodwin, her great-great-great-great-grandfather, and that his cabin was near the church building there before it was moved to where, Jan?
It was located in the Wildwood Oaks area around Robin Hood or one of those streets.
Yes.
I don't exactly know the exact place, but I remember it as a little girl, going on the old roads,
Yes.
picking berries and looking back in the trees and seeing the cabin. But the cabin was restored and is now located at Cottonwood Park.
Wonderful.
And it's got a historical marker, and it's, I think it's a treasure.
I think it's a treasure too, and I will always hold Jan's feet to the fire because I researched the marker for the Goodwin cabin, and 4 or 5 years later she came along and she found out that that was one of her relatives, and she had no idea that she was related
I didn't.
to the gentleman
I
that
didn't.
built the cabin and had it located. So she's doing a lot of research for me now to make up for some
Yes.
of that in the past. I am so excited about the West Fork Presbyterian Church. It is so meaningful to our city, and we need to at least put in the record one more time when we're going to celebrate. Would you do that for us?
We're going to celebrate on October 8th, starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 4. At 3 o'clock, we hope to have a little program to entertain all of you. And the doors of West Fork Church are open to all people, whoever desires to come. We'd love to have you on the 8th of October. And if you do not have a church home, is it all right if you get a plug in here?
Oh, you bet. This is commercial time. This is
I'd like to invite you to come and share in the worship of this congregation, because it's exciting to me as a retired and old preacher. It's exciting for me to be a part of it, and it reinvigorates me every Sunday.
Yes.
One thing,
Yes,
I
Luther.
think we were talking about how to get to the church, and I believe you were really talking about how to get there from the Arlington area. How about explaining how to get there?
Yeah, Marguerite, how do you get to church from your place out in Wildwood Oaks?
Yes, you can come out to either Carrier or 19th Street to Egyptian, turn west, and go past the golf course and turn right on 109th.
Yes.
And then right again on Santerre. Or you can go on out on Carrier to Sunnyvale and turn west and come again to 109th. And then you would turn left and then left again.
Yes. And when we have the birthday of the city of Grand Prairie as a corporate city, and that birthday is March the 20th, don't you usually put out your little mailbox that has the history of the church and everything? Will you be doing that again next year, Jan?
Yes, we will, and we're also going to do it that day.
Oh, that is
Yes,
wonderful.
in case anyone wants to read the history, the mailboxes will be there, and they can pick up a brochure.
That is wonderful. All right, Marguerite, have we left anything off of this tape that we ought to put on here about West Fork Presbyterian Church? And
Well, I'd like to reemphasize what Reverend Neal said about inviting everyone to come and worship with us and remind them that we do not have Sunday school at this time, so morning worship on Sunday is at 11.
at 11.
At 11. And if they'd like to come a little early and hear the choir struggling along, we have choir practice starts at 10:15. And we always welcome new members to the choir too, or just come and listen.
Now, this special celebration day, any other time, do you have Bible studies, a Sunday school, and everything at a separate time, or do you ever have that?
Not at the present time.
Not at the present time.
We're
But-
looking forward to it.
But we need a lot of new young folks that could come in that could handle that
That's
for us.
right.
Don't you think we do?
Young families with children.
Yes.
Then I'll push them. I promised Lucille that I would have a Sunday school when we got enough children there to make it for them, and I'm still looking forward.
Reverend Neal does have a short service for children
Oh, that's great.
Every Sunday,
every Sunday.
children's sermon.
That's part of your regular
That's
service.
right,
and
part of the-
bring the children into it.
Yes.
Oh, that is great.
And we sit on the floor together and talk.
Oh, that-
And he brings his what's-it bag.
And now, what is this bag?
I'll let him tell you.
The what's-it bag is a brown paper bag from one of the grocery stores.
I see.
And I've used it almost every Sunday since I've been there, and I've never duplicated anything in that sack. Each Sunday, there's something different in there, and that's the center then of our meditation for the children.
Your little get-together
The
for
what's-it
them.
bag.
That
What's in it
what's-it.
today?
Yes, uh-huh. Oh, that sounds exciting, doesn't it? And we would want to go back to our second childhood to go and sit and be a part of that.
Well, I
we
think the
get-
children, the big children, get as much out of it as the little ones.
We all listen to that also.
Yes, we do.
They don't go to sleep on it.
Actually, one of the greatest thrills is to see these little children running up to sit down and listen to this, and then run back to their parents after it's over.
After they give him a big hug. and
Don't
kiss.
forget, I get a hug and a kiss from every one of them.
Oh, that is wonderful. All right, we must not leave out anything about West Fork. Have we forgotten anything, Jan? I know that, are you going to have a very special ceremony? Didn't you say at 3 o'clock that day? Is it a special program? What's the program for that day?
I think it will be, we will have the dignitaries, the mayor from Grand Prairie.
Council people.
Council people, the mayor from Arlington. We're also going to have a program about the church. I think several people maybe will give the history of the church.
Oh, great.
Because everyone always adds something that someone else doesn't know about. I believe the Daughters of the Republic of Texas are going to present a Texas flag to the church.
How
At this
wonderful.
time, we do not have one, so they will be having a ceremony and presenting that. There will be an old-fashioned sing-along, and Marguerite will be taking care of that. Lots of food, lots of fellowship, and probably a lot of old-timers that haven't been there in quite a while. So it would be great for you to have your notebook, be there,
Be ready to
and
take
you
care
as
of
an
all of
interview.
It's one of the things I think about the church. I've had several visitors who would speak to me later and said they never found a church where there was so much love.
Oh, that is great.
And I think that's what drew us to it, was this
Yes.
spirit that's so much a part of that congregation.
That's wonderful. We have about 3 minutes left on our tape, and I'd like for each one of you all to tell us a little bit about your own personal family, your husband or wife's name, your spouse's name, your children. Name that as we go down the line, and we're going to end up, because you all are the church at West Fork, and we'll have that on our history tape. And would you tell us about your family?
My wife is Gwen, and we have 2 daughters,
Name them.
Paula and Mary. Paula Overholzer, who lives in Germantown, Tennessee, and Mary Dixon, who teaches at Wimbish School in Arlington. She teaches 4th grade. This is her 21st year of teaching there, and she and her 2 daughters are in church every Sunday. Her husband works at Six Flags on the weekends.
That's a blessing, isn't it?
Oh, listen, those children especially, and my daughter, as I've said, Mary has heard me preach all her life.